Welcome back. Let's check in with Dr. Shane Palmer at MUSC Health Columbia to learn about the importance of vascular screenings.
I like taking care of people that are sick, people that really need surgery, life-altering, life-saving type stuff, and vascular surgery is a perfect mix of that and technical requirements. And so it's kind of what I've always wanted to be. Well, vascular screenings, there's a lot of various screenings programs out there. Typically high-risk patients. I've tried to encourage people that have high-risk conditions, heart conditions, people with a long history of smoking, a lot of other medical problems, diabetes, older folks especially. If you have any and or all of those, you're at high risk for heart and vascular disease. So in those cases, vascular screening can be very helpful. Typically a screening isn't something covered by insurance per se. There are exceptions, but if in high-risk people, that can be very beneficial. And so carotid disease, aortic disease, peripheral arterial disease, PAD, those are the most common things that we screen for. 3 components are the most common. We do a limited ultrasound of the carotids. Carotids are a common cause of stroke. Most people that have carotid disease, they don't know they have it. And so I don't like to use the word silent killer, but it is silent and until you don't know about it. So simple ultrasound, little jelly on the neck, that takes about 10 minutes. For the aorta, also another silent killer, literally, because most people don't know they have them. Little jelly on the belly, and again, it's an ultrasound. So they're painless, very accurate. They're limited studies, but very accurate. And then for PAD, we actually just measure the blood pressure at the ankle. It should be the same as the arms, and if it's not, you probably have some degree of blockage. And the whole screening for most people depends, again, where you're getting it. It's about an hour. Painless, low risk, no risk. Personally, I think it's mostly lifestyle. However, it's a disease of getting older, so there is genetics in there somewhere. But vascular diseases, as a rule, are disease of the aged. As you get older, you'll have it. If you smoke, you're much higher risk, or if you're around people that smoke a lot. However, there are genetic components. There are certain heritable things like super high cholesterol and stuff like that go into that. And those, in general, you see that those are the early people that have like young heart attacks and advanced disease at young ages. But most of what we see are the older folks. It's the part of cost of living, bad genes, bad habits, things like that. So the reason screenings are so good because, like in the carotids, most people don't know they have it, so they have no symptoms. Well, until they do, but nobody wants stroke to be their first symptom. So, we do carotid disease because advanced carotid disease increases your risk for stroke. That's where you have sudden weakness on one side, facial droop that maybe the family sees. One classic finding is transient blindness in one eye that goes right away. That's a classic. Numbness that goes down one side, things like that. And in those patients, or difficulty speaking, in those patients, they should go get evaluated by the stroke specialist in the ED. For aortas, again, most people don't know they have one. In fact, if you come in with symptoms or problems from an aortic aneurysm, that's a problem. So most people, it's found because they have back pain, so they get an x-ray. Or they got kidney stone, they get a CAT scan. And that's why these are important, because sometimes your first symptom is severe abdominal pain or belly pain. And that can be a sign of rupture. And a significant portion of those people do not survive. And so, especially if you're a smoker, getting older, aortic screenings are very important, because the biggest problem is not knowing in that case. If you know, you can follow it, and then we know kind of at what size we fix it. Now, when you talk about PAD in the legs, that's the most common problem, but seems to be the one we pick up the least, because a lot of people just kind of ignore it. The classic initial problem is, when they walk, they get maybe calf cramps on a routine basis after a certain distance, maybe thigh pain, maybe the leg just feels really tired, they got to rest for a minute, it gets better, and then they walk maybe another 100 yards, the same thing. That's a classic early finding, and that could be a sign that you have a blockage. Occasionally you'll find very severe findings, and so most concerning is usually if you see somebody who has a really severe blockage of their carotid, very large aneurysm, and that makes everybody really nervous. Usually I would go down and talk to them, counsel them. I'm just part of the program, and let them know this didn't occur overnight, but it's critical that they follow up. Really stress that important thing. It's not an emergency as long as they're not having problems with it. It's just found incidentally. And that's the most common problem. I used to see people that would show up to my office after a pay-for screening, and they would be told they have to see somebody within 3 hours, or something would happen, and it's very stressful for them. And so severe findings are the thing that really concerns people. And if you can reassure them, and they just need to get in to see a vascular surgeon and have the real deal study, and then go from there. As far as rescreening, some would argue if it's normal, and you're definitely in your 60s, you probably never need a rescreening. That's one of my biggest beefs with some of the pay for screening programs, is they send out these reminders to some of my patients that are 70s and 80s with normal screenings. Oh, you have an appointment in a year, and they get them every year. You don't really need that. And so if it's normal, a good rule of thumb I've used, because people, they're still antsy, they want one every 5 years or so. That's not unreasonable, but you don't need them more often than that. And the older you get, if they're normal, you may not need it again. As far as if they're not normal, you don't really need a screening again, because you can go to your medical doctor, especially if you're on Medicare, and if you have a known carotid stenosis or narrowing, an aneurysm, now you have that diagnosis, so your insurance will pay for it. So you really shouldn't get the watered down screening all the time if you have insurance, Medicare, things like that. You should get the real deal, because it's paid for, and it gives you a little bit more information anyway. Usually take the report to your primary care doctor. That's your gatekeeper as a rule. If you're lucky, depends on what it is, the report will kind of give them an idea of what to do. If it's a severe finding, significant finding, they should order a full-blown ultrasound. These studies we do for screening, they're limited. Nobody wants to spend 3 hours doing this stuff. They're meant to really find it if it's there. They don't go into details. And so they should get the full-blown detailed study, because there can be slight differences. And based on that, then you decide whether you need to refer to a vascular surgeon, whether something can be followed, medical management. So we talk them to stop smoking, things like that. Same with aortas and everything else. But take it to your primary care doc. They'll talk to you, see what's going on, and then get a real blown study, and then from there you go. The most important thing when it comes to vascular surgery is prevention. So you got to work on those bad habits and bad genes and bad luck, and obviously you got to work on stop smoking, exercise regularly, eat well, and keep your cholesterol under control. And of course, if you're having a problem, don't ignore it. Get in to see your medical doctor, and if you need to see me, well, you know where I am.